Welcome, everyone. We're diving deep today into one of humanity's biggest questions. What happens to our souls after we die?
It's a question that's captivated thinkers and spiritual seekers for centuries.
Exactly, and we're looking at it through the fascinating lens of the Baha'i teachings. Specifically, we're going to be drawing from some really powerful writings by Baha'u'llah.
His writings offer a really unique perspective on the soul and its journey.
They really do. And one of the things that makes it so captivating is that it totally reimagines death, not as an ending, but like a transition into a realm even more vibrant than we can imagine.
It's a perspective that kind of flips the script on our conventional ideas about death and the afterlife. Instead of fear and finality, we get this vision of hope and the soul continuing to evolve.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. So the idea of the soul's eternal journey, that's central to the Baha'i teachings. And there's this incredible quote from Baha'u'llah where he calls the soul a token from the most merciful, a light from the ancient light.
Oh, that's a beautiful one.
It is. It's from the Tablet of the Maiden. And it's often cited as one of the core expressions of like our spiritual essence. And it really makes you think like, if we truly believe our souls are eternal and come from this divine source, what does that mean for us, for how we understand ourselves?
Well, it really shifts the focus, away from our temporary physical existence and towards the enduring nature of our spiritual selves.
Okay.
Because if the soul truly is this emanation of the divine, like Baha'u'llah says, then it means our purpose goes way beyond just this earthly life.
Absolutely.
It points to this grander scheme of continuous growth and development, one that stretches beyond the limits of time and space as we understand them.
Oh, for sure. It's really mind-boggling when you try and wrap your head around these huge concepts.
It really is.
And Baha'u'llah himself acknowledges how difficult it is to grasp. He actually says that revealing the full mysteries of death would kindle such fear and sorrow that some would perish.
Wow. That's a powerful statement.
Yeah. It's from the Hidden Words. And it really makes you pause and think, like, why would knowing too much about the afterlife actually be bad for us in this life?
I think one way to look at it is that the sheer scale of the afterlife could just be completely overwhelming for our, finite human minds.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
It's like, imagine trying to explain all the complexities of our world to a baby still in the womb. They just wouldn't have the capacity to understand it right.
Totally.
And it's kind of the same with us in the afterlife. If that veil were lifted and we suddenly understood all the mysteries of the spiritual realm, it might just paralyze us with awe or even like despair.
So it's almost like we're being protected from information that we're just not ready to handle yet.
Exactly. It allows us to focus on what we need to do here and now, the spiritual lessons that we need to learn in this earthly classroom, you could say. The Baha'i teachings really emphasize that this physical world is like a training ground for our souls. It's the place where we develop our virtues and cultivate our spiritual potential. And knowing too much about the afterlife could actually distract us from that essential work.
That makes a lot of sense. So the mystery itself actually pushes us to focus on our spiritual growth here and now.
Yeah, exactly.
So while the specifics of the afterlife are veiled, we do get glimpses in the writings about the soul's continued journey. And there's this passage that says the soul will continue to progress until it attaineth the presence of God.
It's a powerful image of constant advancement.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
It makes you think about the soul being on this never-ending journey of growth and becoming closer to the divine.
Absolutely. And it's not about reaching some static destination, right? It's the journey itself that's the essence of growth. Baha'u'llah actually makes a really interesting comparison between our spiritual progress and the way civilization advances.
Oh, I'm curious to hear that.
He says in the book, Gleanings from the Writings of Baha'u'llah, all men have been created to carry forward an ever-advancing civilization.
So it's like as humanity learns and innovates and builds upon past achievements, our souls are on a similar path of constant development.
Exactly. It raises a crucial question for each of us. What are we doing in this life that's actually going to contribute to our soul's progress in the next? What choices are we making that actually help us grow spiritually and move us forward on this eternal journey?
That's such an important question, and this is where that concept of spiritual proximity comes in, right?
Yeah.
The idea that what we do in this life affects how close we are to God in the next.
Exactly. It's like we're constantly shaping our eternal selves,
Yeah.
making choices that either bring us closer to or further from that divine light. That's such a powerful way to put it. And it really brings home the importance of living a life that's aligned with spiritual principles.
It does.
And, it's not about following rigid rules, but about developing those virtues that resonate with our true selves and, ultimately contribute to making the world a better place.
It's fascinating to think that even small actions can have such a profound impact on our soul's journey.
It's really true.
And, speaking of experiencing life differently, the Baha'i writings suggest that when we're in the spiritual world, our senses are heightened. Like we're not limited by our physical bodies anymore.
It's like stepping into this realm of pure experience.
It is.
Baha'u'llah has this beautiful passage in the Hidden Words where he compares the soul's transition to a bird being freed from its cage.
Oh, wow.
Imagine experiencing the world with that kind of intensity, free from the limitations of our physical senses. It makes you wonder, what would it really be like to exist in that state? What new levels of perception and understanding would become available to us?
It's almost impossible to grasp, but it does paint this incredible picture of liberation and expanded awareness.
It really does.
And if the soul is a light from the ancient light, like Baha'u'llah says, then maybe death is that moment when the light is finally free to shine at its full potential.
That's a really beautiful thought.
And what's even more intriguing is that this journey of the soul doesn't happen in isolation.
Right.
The Baha'i teachings emphasize the interconnectedness of humanity. Like our individual journeys are all part of this larger collective evolution.
Absolutely. The concept of the oneness of humanity is central to the Baha'i teachings. Just like our physical bodies are made up of all these individual cells working together, our souls are part of this larger spiritual tapestry.
So we're not just on a personal journey, but we're also contributing to this collective spiritual evolution. Wow, that adds a whole other layer of depth to the picture.
It does. And it challenges us to think about how our choices impact not only our own spiritual growth, but the progress of humanity as a whole.
Wow. That raises some big questions about heaven and hell, which are often portrayed as these distinct destinations in the afterlife. How do those concepts fit into the Baha'i understanding of the soul's journey?
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's definitely a topic that deserves its own deep dive. But I can say that the Baha'i writings offer a really unique perspective on heaven and hell. They move away from these literal interpretations and focus more on the soul's relationship with the divine.
Oh, that's interesting. So stay tuned, because we're going to continue this deep dive into the soul's eternal journey. We'll be exploring the Baha'i view of heaven and hell and the idea of the oneness of religion. And of course, we'll be talking about what all of this means for our lives.
It's going to be a fascinating journey. And remember, this exploration isn't just about, gathering information. It's about taking these concepts and letting them resonate with you personally and seeing how they connect with your own life and your own spiritual aspirations.
Absolutely. Okay, so we left off talking about heaven and hell. And, in many religions, they're depicted as these actual physical places. But the Baha'i writings offer a totally different perspective.
Yeah, they do. Instead of thinking of them as literal locations, the Baha'i teachings describe heaven and hell more as states of being. It's really about our spiritual proximity to God.
So it's less about like where we end up and more about like our inner state, our spiritual condition.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine like a spectrum of closeness to the divine.
Okay.
The closer our thoughts, our intentions, and our actions align with God's will, the more we experience those feelings of joy and radiance, those qualities that we associate with heaven. But on the other hand, if we choose to act against those principles, then we experience this sense of separation and darkness. And that's kind of what's likened to hell.
So it's like this internal experience of either alignment or misalignment with the divine.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a really fascinating way of reframing those concepts. It makes you think about the choices we make in this life, not just in terms of like earthly consequences, but also in terms of like our spiritual well-being.
Absolutely. The Baha'i writings emphasize this connection between our physical and spiritual lives. Every act of kindness, every effort we make to develop those virtues like honesty and compassion, justice, those things not only benefit ourselves and others in this world, but they also contribute to our spiritual progress in the afterlife.
So it's almost like we're packing our bags for eternity, filling them with experiences and qualities that will shape our journey in the next realm.
I love that analogy.
It's like we're making choices that either draw us closer to that divine light or kind of lead us away from it.
Exactly. And that's why the Baha'i teachings really highlight the importance of consciously cultivating those spiritual qualities that help us become closer to God. Think of them as provisions for our soul's journey.
Provisions for the soul. I like that. And this concept of spiritual proximity, it makes you wonder about the role of different religions in shaping that journey.
Right.
Like, how do the Baha'i teachings address all the different faiths and beliefs that exist in the world?
Well, that's where this really important concept of the oneness of religion comes in. Baha'u'llah teaches that all the world's religions actually come from the same divine source. He uses a beautiful analogy of the sun shining through different windows.
Okay.
The windows might be different in shape and size, but the light that shines through them is the same.
Oh, that's a great visual. So, like, all these diverse religions are essentially expressions of the same fundamental truth, just kind of tailored to different cultures and historical contexts.
Precisely. And this understanding has huge implications for the soul's journey.
I bet.
It means that no matter what your religious background, the path to spiritual growth is open to everyone. It's like we're all climbing the same mountain, maybe taking different roads, but ultimately we're striving toward that same summit.
And this perspective of unity seems especially important now. You know, in a world that often feels so divided along religious lines, how does this Baha'i principle of oneness kind of play out in terms of interfaith dialogue and cooperation?
Well, it encourages us to shift our focus from what divides us to what unites us. The Baha'i writings actually promote active engagement and collaboration between different religious communities, emphasizing the importance of understanding and respecting those diverse perspectives. It's not about like blending all religions into one big religion.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we all share these common spiritual roots and working together to build a world that's more just and more peaceful.
So instead of seeing differences as obstacles, we can actually view them as opportunities for learning and growth.
Exactly. When we engage in meaningful dialogue with people from different faith backgrounds, it can actually deepen our understanding of our own beliefs and broaden our perspective on the human experience.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's like it allows us to see the beauty and the wisdom in those other traditions while strengthening our own commitment to those shared values like love, compassion, justice.
Absolutely. It's almost like a spiritual cross-training program, strengthening our spiritual muscles by engaging with all those different perspectives and approaches.
I love that. Spiritual cross-training, that's great. And it fits right in with this Baha'i belief in the continual evolution of both individuals and humanity as a whole. Just like physical exercise helps us grow stronger and more resilient, engaging in interfaith dialogue helps us build our capacity for understanding empathy and collaboration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And think about the long-term impact of those interfaith efforts, not just in creating more harmony and understanding in this world, but also how they contribute to the collective spiritual advancement of humanity.
It's pretty powerful to think that our actions have meaning and purpose, not just in this life, but also in the context of our soul's eternal journey.
It is. And as we continue to explore these really profound implications of this eternal journey, it's important to remember that the Baha'i teachings really encourage individual exploration and reflection.
Right.
These concepts aren't meant to be accepted blindly. They're more like starting points for your own personal inquiry and discovery.
So this deep dive isn't just about us giving information. It's about inviting our listeners to actually ponder these concepts, connect them to their own lives, and, embark on their own unique spiritual journeys.
Exactly. It's about empowering every individual to take ownership of their spiritual growth and contribute to that collective evolution of humanity. And as we dive even deeper into this idea of the soul's eternal journey, we'll explore how the Baha'i teachings give us this framework for understanding our purpose in this life and beyond.
And speaking of purpose, that idea of legacy often comes up when we talk about the afterlife. Like, if our souls keep evolving after death, what does that mean for how we understand the legacy we leave behind in this world? Because it's not just about what we achieve while we're alive, right?
You're right, it's not. The Baha'i teachings challenge us to think about legacy in terms of our contribution to humanity's spiritual progress. It's about the love that we share, the kindness we extend, the work we do to build a more just and peaceful world. Those actions, they create ripples that extend way beyond our physical lifespan.
So it's almost like planting seeds that will keep growing and bearing fruit long after we're gone. It's like our legacy becomes woven into this grand tapestry of human spiritual evolution, built through all these countless acts of love and service and striving for a better world.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. And it really highlights the significance of aligning our actions with our highest aspirations. Striving to leave behind a legacy of love, compassion, and unity.
So we've spent this deep dive talking about the Baha'i teachings on the soul and its journey. The idea that it's eternal, that it keeps progressing, and that what we do here impacts our spiritual closeness to God in the next life. It's a lot to take in.
It really is. It kind
Yeah.
of makes you rethink what's important.
Yeah.
And consider like the long game, the
Yes.
consequences of our choices way down the line. If you truly grasp this concept of the soul's eternal journey, it changes how you see what a meaningful life really is.
One thing that stuck with me is this quote where Baha'u'llah compares the soul's transition to the next world, to like a bird being freed from its cage. It's such a powerful image of liberation.
Oh yeah, it really is.
Right.
It suggests that death isn't an ending at all, but this release from the limits of the physical world. He wrote those words in the Hidden Words. It's a collection of these short poetic sayings.
Okay.
And he's using that analogy, to help us understand that the soul, once it's free from the body, it can experience so much more than we can even wrap our minds around here on earth.
Makes you wonder what kind of knowledge and understanding would open up to us in that state of pure consciousness, right?
Well, the Baha'i writings tell us that in the spiritual world, our ability to perceive and understand things is just greatly enhanced. We're not held back by our five senses or by time and space the way we experience them now. Imagine being able to grasp concepts and realities that are totally beyond our reach at the moment.
It's like we're upgrading to a whole new operating system, one that can process information and experience reality on an entirely different level.
That's a great way to put it. It makes you realize how limited our current understanding of reality actually is.
For sure. And this brings us back to that concept of legacy. If our souls keep evolving even after death, how does that change our understanding of the impact we have on the world? It's not just about our achievements during our lifetime anymore, is it?
Not at all. The Baha'i teachings encourage us to view legacy through the lens of how we contribute to humanity's spiritual advancement. It's about the love we put out there, the kindness we show, the work we do to build a more just and peaceful world. These actions, they ripple outward far beyond our time on earth.
So it's like our legacy becomes part of this huge tapestry of human spiritual evolution. All these threads woven together by countless acts of love service and striving for something better. It's inspiring, but also kind of daunting when you think about the responsibility we each have.
It is a responsibility, but it's also incredible opportunity. The Baha'i writings emphasize that each and every soul has the potential to make things better for humanity. No act of kindness, no effort to build understanding or unity is too small to matter.
It's a powerful reminder that what we do has meaning and purpose, not just for ourselves, but as part of this much bigger interconnected story of human spiritual evolution.
And as we wrap up our deep dive into the soul's eternal journey, it's important to remember that this is really just the starting point. The Baha'i teachings offer so much depth and nuance on these questions, and there's always more to discover and contemplate.
It's definitely given me a lot to think about. What are some key takeaways you hope listeners will carry with them from our conversation?
I hope they come away with a renewed sense of wonder and curiosity about the soul and its journey. I hope they're inspired to keep exploring these ideas, connect them to their own experiences, and consider how they can play a part in the spiritual advancement of humanity.
This has been such a thought-provoking discussion. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the soul's eternal journey. We encourage you to keep exploring these ideas and let them guide you on your own path of spiritual growth.